Okay, before we get going, let me just clarify that these are just my personal favorite movies of the year. They're in no particular order, and the list obviously doesn't include movies I haven't seen yet. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. This is a Swedish movie that I bet most of you haven't seen, and it just so happens to be one of the most memorable movies of the year, mainly because it takes on certain Nordic mythologies and gives them a new spin, and the way it goes about it is very unique and refreshing, and that's just one of the reasons this is one of the standout movies of the year. I love Willem Dafoe. I think he's great in just about everything he does. But in this one in particular, he gave it his absolute everything. And he plays the artist Vincent van Gogh as his grip on reality starts to slip. And this is hands down one of the most memorable and striking performances of the year. This is not a movie I expected to end up on my year-end list. But it made a lasting impression and it stuck with me for some reason. And it's sort of a quaint little love story about an old prepper and a woman he meets. And you know, it's just a rather quirky, funny and surprisingly touching movie, with great performances by John Lithgow and Blythe Danner. I'm not the biggest fan of child actors in general, especially when they're in the starring role, and basically the entire movie hinges on their performance. But the story here revolves around a few kids living on the streets, fending for themselves. And all the performances were really good, and they just sold me on the story completely. And the story is really great too, and this is absolutely one of the most emotionally impactful movies of the year for me. What can I even say about this one? Tarantino is back and he's done it again. And this one definitely didn't feel like he was playing it safe, or that he wasn't challenging himself or pushing himself into new territory. Quite the opposite actually, he made a movie that felt unique and different, with hands down one of my favorite scenes and sequences of the entire year. And I mean, Brad Pitt and DiCaprio were nothing short of excellent in this either. So you know, just a really great movie all around. I enjoyed it a lot. Joaquin Phoenix is one of my favorite actors working today, and when he decided to take on the mantle of the Joker after Heath Ledger's iconic performance, I was a little hesitant but mostly excited to see what he'd do with it. And of course he ended up doing his own thing and knocking it out of the park, in a very well written and directed movie that's more of a character study than anything else. This is an Italian movie about a dog groomer who's associating with the wrong people. He's a bit of a weak-willed man who's just very easily pushed around. But it's also a movie with great performances and a very interesting character arc. And you know, this one just ended up being surprisingly compelling and extraordinarily violent, and I loved it. This is a British movie about a young girl living in this seaside town. A town that's not exactly the pinnacle of civilization or all that prosperous. But oh man, the story here is absolutely gripping and gut-wrenching. As is the main performance by Liv Hill, who just kills this part. Because, well, it's kind of a tragic character and a tragic story. But at the end of the day, it's not the bummer of a movie it could have been. What can I say? I love Noah Baumbach's writing, and this is some of his best work yet. And when you combine that with the fantastic performances by Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver, you've got yourself one of the most compelling and interesting comedic dramas of the year. Or movies of the year period, because this one just did things right and let the actors really shine. From the maker of The Witch comes the next mind-bending movie about two lighthouse keepers. A movie that is stylistically one of the most memorable movies of the year, but one that also brought another absolutely fantastic performance by Willem Dafoe. And what I would call an equally great performance by Robert Pattinson as well. And yeah, this is easily one of my very favorite movies of the entire year. I absolutely loved it. And that's it for my top 10, but I had a few other movies I wanted to mention, so let's do a couple of honorable mentions, why don't we? This one was just a perfect end to a great trilogy and probably my favorite animated movie of the year. I liked this one a lot, but I appreciate what they did here even more. You know, bringing a decade-long story to a worthy end. This just had really strong writing and strong performances too, and it ended up being my favorite period piece of the year. I wouldn't call this a great movie, but it's one I enjoyed immensely, and if you like Johnny Depp, you should probably check it out. Combine the Beatles with great acting and a really solid script, and what you have amounts to one of the best romantic comedies of the year. This is the weirdo pick of the year because it's just such an odd and quirky movie that's also surprisingly funny. This one basically just made the list because I absolutely loved watching Christian Bale and Matt Damon do their thing for a couple of hours. And those were my top picks for the year, but how about you? What are your personal favorites this year? Let me know down below. And as always, I appreciate you and thanks for watching.